Ashford Grant didn't believe in fate until the bridesmaid tripped into his arms, covered in frosting, dragging a veil and half a wedding cake with her. He caught her before she hit the floor, his navy suit now smeared with white buttercream and sugar roses. "You okay?" he asked, blinking at the wide-eyed brunette who just crashed into him like a tornado in heels. Yeah, I was trying to save the cake. Clearly, I failed." She looked down at the mess, then back up at him, breathless. "Sorry." "Really sorry?" Ashford looked at the frosting on his sleeve, then back at her. "It's just a suit," he said, surprised to hear himself laugh. "You all right?" "I think I twisted my pride, but otherwise I'm good." She was beautiful. Not in the usual red carpet way he was used to, but in a real stop-you-in-your-tracks kind of way. Hair pinned up with loose curls framing her face, skin glowing, eyes sharp and stormy, and that voice warm and a little raspy like she'd been laughing all day. "Willa," she said, holding out a frosting-covered hand. "Willa Carson, bridesmaid, cake destroyer. Ashford Grant, groom's cousin, cake victim." Her eyes widened. "Wait, you're Ash, the one from New York." "That's me." "I thought you were older." He raised an eyebrow. "I thought you'd be more graceful." That made her laugh. It was loud and unfiltered and made something twist in his chest. Willa stepped back to assess the damage. "Okay, I think I can fix this. Maybe, probably not, but I'm gonna try." "You don't have to fix anything. If anything, you made this wedding way more interesting." She looked at him, genuinely surprised. "You're not mad." "I'm rarely mad. It wrinkles the suit." She laughed again, and Ashford found himself watching her longer than he should have. He wasn't supposed to be here more than a day. Just show up, smile for the family photos, and fly back to Manhattan. But in one messy, frosting-covered moment, that plan cracked wide open. The ceremony was beautiful ivy-covered arches, candlelight, a string quartet playing under the setting sun, but Ashford barely noticed any of it. His eyes kept drifting to Willa. She stood beside the bride, holding a bouquet and smiling like she wasn't the girl who'd nearly taken down a 5-tier cake hours ago. After the vows, he found her by the open bar, nursing a glass of champagne and watching the dance floor. "Still thinking about the cake?" he asked, stepping beside her. Willa turned, her smile instant. "No, I'm thinking I should probably leave before I trip again and take out a flower wall." "You're not going anywhere. I haven't danced with you yet." She tilted her head. "Are you just being nice because I ruined your suit?" "No," he said simply. "I'm being selfish. I want 5 minutes of your attention." That surprised her and intrigued her. "All right, Grant, let's see if you can dance." He could, very well. And as they moved together under the fairy lights, something shifted between them. Something that felt too intense for just a wedding reception. Every time she laughed or looked up at him, he felt it hit deeper, and when her hand slid into his, it felt natural, familiar. Like he'd known her longer than a few hours. After the song ended, they stepped outside away from the music under the stars. "So, New York?" she asked, leaning against the railing. "Yeah, I run a real estate firm, skyscrapers and overpriced condos. You like it?" He nodded slowly. "Most days. But lately it all feels loud and empty." She looked at him, really looked. "That's honest," he shrugged. "You asked." Willa looked out at the vineyard lights below. "I'm a florist. I own a shop in Charleston. Small, chaotic, smells like lavender and coffee most days." "That sounds perfect." "It's not, but it's mine." Ashford stared at her. "You're unlike anyone I've ever met." She looked up at him, eyes soft. "Is that a line?" "No, that's the problem. I don't do lines." "I don't do this." "What's this?" "Feeling like I want to cancel my flight just to see you tomorrow." Willa stilled. "Say something," he said, suddenly unsure. She grinned. "I was just thinking the same thing." He didn't leave the next morning. Instead, Ashford stayed. One day turned into 3. And by the 4th, he was in her flower shop, wearing jeans for the first time in months, helping her carry boxes of roses while she bossed him around like he'd worked there for years. "No, those go by the cooler. Not next to the violets," she said, waving her hand. "Yes, ma'am," he teased. "You're lucky you're cute." He turned to her. So you think I'm cute, she rolled her eyes. I think you're trouble, you still haven't asked what I do. I don't care what you do, really. I only care about how you make me feel, Ashford froze. That hit harder than he expected. I like who I am around you, she added, her voice softer, and that's rare. He stepped closer, brushing a curl off her cheek. I don't want this to end. It doesn't have to. He leaned in, kissed her, and the world fell away. But not everything was perfect. At dinner that night at a candlelit restaurant he rented privately just for them, he opened the door to his world. I should tell you something, he said over wine and oysters. Her eyes met his. Okay. I'm not just a real estate guy, I own the firm. And a few others. I'm a billionaire, Willa, she blinked. I didn't want to lead with it. I didn't want that to be the first thing you knew about me. She stared at him for a full second. Okay, I mean, it's a little intense. But you're still the guy who carried buckets of tulips and nearly dropped a cactus on his foot, he laughed. That cactus was aggressive. And you're still the guy who danced with me barefoot after the reception ended, so yeah, it's okay. Ashford looked at her, heart pounding. You're not running? Nope. Why? Because I think I'm already falling for you. He reached across the table, took her hand, and kissed it. Then I'm already gone. Willa shut the door behind her and leaned against it, heart racing. The scent of magnolia and eucalyptus drifted from the back room, but all she could think about was the man sitting on her shop stool, sleeves rolled, collar open, watching her like she was the only thing worth noticing in the room. She dropped her keys into the dish by the door, trying to keep her voice steady. You didn't have to wait. I told you the delivery might run late. Ashford didn't look away. I wanted to. Willa crossed her arms, trying not to feel the pull in her chest. You don't seem like someone who waits around. I'm not. But I've never met someone who made me want to. That silenced her. Completely. She walked past him toward the workbench, placing the last of the day's order slips into the drawer. You say things like that and I forget how to breathe. Then maybe I should say more of them. She turned around slowly. You're not scared of moving fast, are you? Ashford stood, the stool creaking as he pushed it back. I don't like wasting time pretending I'm not already in it. In what? This. His voice was quieter now. The air between them thickened. Willa stepped forward, fingers curling at her sides. I've never had someone see me this quickly. I've never wanted to. A long pause stretched between them, then she looked away, suddenly restless. I got a call today, she said, brushing her apron off, from a property developer wants to buy out the shop's lease. Ashford's expression shifted. Are they pushing you out? They said it's just an offer, but it felt more like a warning. He stepped closer, watching her carefully. Do you want to sell? No, this place isn't just a business, her voice cracked. It's my whole damn heartbeat. Then you're not going to lose it, her eyes snapped up. How can you be so sure? He didn't answer right away. Instead, he walked to the window, looking out at the street where the lights from the antique store across the road flickered. Then he turned back. Because I've made things happen for less important reasons. And this matters more than most things I've touched, she studied him. You're not seriously thinking about stepping into this, are you? I'm already in it, Willa. You just haven't let me show you what that means. Her throat tightened, but she fought to keep her voice even. I don't need saving. I'm not here to save you, I'm here to stand beside you. She looked away, blinking fast. I don't know how to let someone do that. Then I'll wait until you do. The silence that followed wasn't empty. It was charged, full of questions neither of them were ready to ask yet. The next day she found him waiting outside the shop before she opened. He held 2 coffees and a folder. What's this? She asked, setting her keys in the lock. Coffees for you. The folder's for the lawyer I'd call your landlord. Willa stared at him. You did what? I didn't offer him anything. Just made sure he knew someone was paying attention. She pressed a hand to her forehead. Ashford, I know, I should have asked first. He handed her the folder. But I don't like people thinking they can scare you out of something you built. She took it slowly. Her voice softened. Thank you. You don't need to thank me. Just let me be here. She looked down at the folder, then back at him. You're not playing house with me, are you? No. He reached for her hand. I'm building something if you'll let me. She opened the shop in silence, but he stayed, helped sweep the front steps. Carried in the morning delivery of snapdragons and baby's breath. He didn't ask to be praised or noticed. He just folded himself into her rhythm like he'd always been there. Later that evening, they walked along the Battery, the wind tugging at her hair. She glanced at him sideways. You ever think about what it would be like if we'd met under different circumstances? He didn't miss a beat. No, because then I might have missed it, she smiled barely. You say things like that and make it really hard not to fall. He stopped walking, turning to face her. Then don't fight it. I'm scared, so am I. She looked at him, really looked. You don't seem like someone who gets scared. I didn't, until you. That undid her. She stepped into him, pressing her forehead to his chest. He wrapped his arms around her without hesitation, holding her like the whole world had narrowed down to this moment. Neither of them spoke. They didn't need to, but the next day shattered the stillness. Willa stood in the middle of her shop, the morning sun streaking through the windows as her delivery driver handed her a letter. She tore it open, her hands trembling. What is it? Ashford asked, stepping in from the back room. She read it twice. They are terminating the lease. Effective in 30 days, he stilled. They can't. They are. He took the letter from her, scanning it. The muscles in his jaw tightened. They're using a redevelopment clause. They found a loophole. Willa stared at the walls around her, the shelves, the work table, the ceiling she'd painted herself. They want to turn it into a boutique hotel. Ashford folded the letter carefully. Then we fight. She turned to him, her voice shaking. I don't know how to fight people like this. You don't have to do it alone. She took a breath, but it didn't steady her. I can't lose this place, Ashford. You won't. But if I do, you won't. His voice was final, certain. She looked into his eyes and saw something terrifying in them. Not recklessness, conviction. He'd already decided. And she wasn't sure what scared her more, that he might win or that she might let him. Willa didn't open the shop the next morning. Instead, she stood barefoot in her kitchen, staring at a half-eaten piece of toast on the counter and feeling the weight of her entire life pressing down on her chest. The letter was still sitting by the sink, folded but not forgotten. Her lease was ending. Her corner of the world was being taken from her, and the man who'd kissed her under the stars now sat somewhere downtown, speaking to lawyers she'd never met, fighting battles she hadn't asked anyone to fight. When the knock came, she didn't answer right away. Ashford let himself in. She'd given him the spare key 2 nights ago when he stayed late repotting orchids and humming Sinatra under his breath. He looked around the dim kitchen and found her by the window, arms crossed, wearing a faded sweatshirt and silence. You didn't open, he said. I couldn't. I brought coffee. I'm not thirsty. He set it down anyway. She didn't look at him. I feel like I'm watching it all slip through my fingers and I don't know how to hold on. Ashford stepped closer but didn't touch her. I met with the landlord this morning. Willa turned. You what? I wanted to see if there was still room to negotiate. Her eyes flashed. You're not my business partner, Ashford. I'm aware. Then stop acting like this fight belongs to you. It does, because you do. Willa's shoulders stiffened. That's not fair. I'm not trying to be fair. I'm trying to keep you from losing the one place that's ever felt like home to you. She pressed her lips together, jaw tight. I didn't make any offers, he said. I just listened, and I found something. Her arms dropped. What? The clause they're using to terminate the lease only applies if structural renovations begin within 90 days. Construction permits haven't even been filed yet, she blinked. What does that mean? It means we have time. If we can slow the process down, they can't legally evict you. Willa stared at him, heartbeat thudding in her ears. I have a legal team already drafting a response. All you have to do is sign off on it. A long silence followed. Then she whispered, Why are you doing all this? Because I love you. She didn't move, didn't breathe. You can't mean that. I do. I didn't expect it. I didn't plan for it, but I know it. Willa turned away, hands trembling. You fell for a version of me you barely know. He stepped forward. I know you like to work with your hands because you don't trust words. I know you drink your coffee black when you're anxious. I know you keep a photo of your mom in the back of the cooler because you talk to her when you're overwhelmed. I know your heart breaks quietly, and I know you'd rather lose everything than owe anyone a debt. She looked up sharply, eyes glassy. You went through my things? No. I just paid attention, her voice cracked. I don't know how to be someone's everything, Ashford. You don't have to be everything, just be you. She moved to the sink, gripping its edge. You make it sound so simple. It's not. But it's worth it. Willa turned around slowly, something shifting in her expression. You're not leaving, are you? Not unless you tell me to. She walked across the kitchen and stopped inches from him. This scares me, I know. I don't know how to stop it from mattering. I don't want you to. Then she kissed him, fingers curling into his shirt like she was anchoring herself to something solid for the first time in weeks. Later that evening, Ashford took her to a dinner she hadn't expected. He didn't mention the restaurant's name, just asked her to trust him. They pulled up to a rooftop garden filled with hanging lanterns and a string quartet softly playing something that sounded like silk. She turned to him. What is this? A place where you can breathe. A single table stood beneath a canopy of wisteria, petals drifting in the breeze. A waiter poured wine as they sat, and the city lights flickered below them. Willa looked around, stunned. How did you find this place? I didn't. I built it, she froze. You what? Bought the building last year. I was going to turn the rooftop into a private lounge, never got around to it. And now it belongs to you. She stared at him, mouth slightly open. He reached into his coat pocket and pulled out a small velvet box. Before you panic, no, it's not a ring. Her breath hitched. It's a key. She took it slowly. To this rooftop, he said. To the garden, the view, the silence, for when everything feels too loud. Willa looked down at the key, hands shaking. You built me a place to escape. No. I built you a place to return to. Tears welled in her eyes, but she blinked them back. No one's ever done anything like this for me. Then they've been wasting their time. She reached across the table, curling her fingers around his. You're not what I expected. I hope I never am. They sat like that for a long time, the quiet wrapping around them like a promise neither had to say out loud. But the calm didn't last. 3 days later, a man in a dark suit stepped into Willa's shop unannounced. He introduced himself as a representative from the development firm. He was polite, cold, calculated. I'm here to offer you a direct payout, he said, sliding a folder across her counter. Far above market value. Willa didn't touch it. Ashford arrived minutes later, having been alerted by the attorney handling her case. He stepped between them without breaking stride. She's not selling, he said. The man adjusted his tie. She should consider it. The firm is prepared to move forward with or without her consent. You'll be moving forward into a legal quagmire, Ashford replied, and I promise you I have more lawyers than you have interns. The man smoothed his jacket. It's not personal, just business. Ashford's voice dropped. It became personal the second you tried to bulldoze what she loves. The man glanced at Willa. You have 48 hours to respond. After that, the offer's off the table. He left without another word. Willa sank onto the nearest stool, fists clenched. He sounded like he'd already won. Ashford crouched in front of her. He hasn't. Her eyes searched his. Are you sure? I've never been more certain, and for the first time she believed him. Willa stood just inside the courthouse lobby, the chill of the air conditioning clinging to her arms despite the late spring heat outside. Ashford was beside her, buttoning his jacket with quiet precision. He looked calm, but his eyes told another story, sharp, focused, and ready to draw blood if necessary. You don't have to go in, he said, glancing at her. I do, she replied, voice steady. If I don't stand up for it now, I'll never forgive myself. He gave a single nod and opened the door. The hearing was short, clinical, handled by a judge who barely looked up from the documents. Ashford's legal team presented their findings with surgical clarity, highlighting the development firm's violation of the 90-day clause, their lack of construction permits, and their failure to provide proper notice. Willa didn't speak until the very end. I built my business flower by flower, she said from the witness chair. Not because it was easy, but because it mattered. To me. To the people who walk through those doors, it's not just a shop, it's a place people come to feel again. I won't let that be erased for the sake of another lifeless hotel. The room fell silent. Even the opposing counsel didn't interrupt. The judge adjourned the hearing with a promise to review everything, but Willa already knew. She saw it in the way the development rep refused to meet her eyes on the way out. They'd lost their grip and they knew it. In the hallway, Ashford didn't speak. He just reached for her hand. She let him thread their fingers together as they walked into the sunlight, the sound of traffic and possibility all around them. That night, she returned to the shop. The lights were off, the air inside still and fragrant. She wandered through it slowly, fingertips drifting across the edge of the cash register, the edge of the table where she used to sit and sketch out arrangements on old paper scraps. She didn't hear the music until she stepped through the back door. The alley between her shop and the bakery next door had been transformed. String lights hung overhead, flickering soft gold across a table set for two. A violinist stood off to the side, bow in hand, coaxing out a melody so tender it made her chest ache. Ashford stood at the far end, hands in his pockets, watching her reaction. "You did this?" she asked, stepping forward. "I wanted to give you something to remember this day by," he said quietly. "Not because we fought for it, but because we won." Willa looked around, heart thudding. "You always do this. You sweep in and somehow make the world stop spinning." "No," he said, walking toward her. "You do that. I just clear the space around it." They ate dinner under the stars, the violinist eventually packing up and disappearing as night wrapped around them. Willa leaned back in her chair, sipping wine and watching Ashford with quiet wonder. "I used to think people like you lived in a different orbit," she said softly, "too far away to ever touch." He reached across the table and took her hand. "Maybe I did. Until you pulled me out of it." She looked at him, unsure whether to laugh or cry. "What happens now?" "I make you an offer." Her brows lifted. "Please tell me it doesn't involve a lease." He stood and pulled something from his jacket pocket, a small, square envelope. "Open it." She rose and took it from him, sliding her finger under the edge. Inside was a hand-drawn sketch of a storefront, her storefront, but expanded 2 stories, a rooftop garden, a second workroom, and a small cafe tucked into the back. "I bought the building next door," he said. "It's yours if you want to expand. No pressure, no conditions, just possibility." She stared at the drawing. "You did all this without asking me?" "Yes, because I don't want you to have to fight again. I want you to have space to dream." Willa looked up at him, her throat tightening. "I don't know what to say." "You don't have to say anything, just promise me something." "What?" "That you'll let me keep building with you, not for you with you." She stepped into his arms, sliding her hands up his chest until they rested near his collar. "I want that. Even if it terrifies me." "Good," he murmured. "Because I'm terrified too." They stood like that for a long time, the city around them fading into the background. Weeks passed. The judge ruled in Willa's favor. The lease was secured, the development firm backed off, and the shop's future was safe. Ashford didn't just celebrate with champagne, he surprised her with a new delivery van, custom painted with a blooming bouquet and the name of her business in elegant gold script. "You really don't do subtle, do you?" she teased when she saw it. "Not when it comes to you." She kissed him in the middle of the parking lot, laughing against his mouth. The expansion plans began, but slowly. On her terms, he didn't push. He just showed up every morning with coffee, and that same look in his eyes like she was the only thing in the room worth looking at. One warm evening, after a long day of designing the rooftop garden for the new space, Willa sat beside him on a picnic blanket they'd laid out on the roof of her shop. The stars above were soft and scattered, and the city hummed in the distance. "Marry me," Ashford said suddenly. Willa turned, startled. "What?" "I meant to do this with more prep, maybe fireworks, probably a string quartet, but I don't want to wait." She blinked, stunned. "You're serious?" "I love you. I want to build every part of my life with you. The messy parts, the quiet parts, the ones no one sees, not someday, now." She stared at him, heart in her throat. I don't need an answer tonight, he said. But I needed to ask. She leaned in and kissed him deep, certain, and without hesitation. You don't have to wait, she whispered. Yes. The wedding came 6 weeks later. It was held in the rooftop garden she'd designed herself, filled with wild roses, hanging ivy, and soft candlelight. Ashford stood at the altar in a tailored midnight suit, his eyes never leaving her as she walked down the aisle with her bouquet of white anemones and golden ranunculus. When they said their vows, there wasn't a dry eye in the garden. I didn't know what I was missing until you crashed into me, he said, his voice shaking. And I didn't believe in forever, she replied, until you stayed. They danced under the stars, their foreheads pressed together, their laughter soft and private. And when the music faded and the guests began to drift home, Ashford swept her into his arms and whispered against her ear. We started with chaos and cake. I like knowing we get to end every day with each other. Willa smiled, fingers curling around the back of his neck. We're just getting started. The scent of lemon verbena drifted through the open windows of their Charleston brownstone as Willa tightened the final ribbon around the bouquet in her lap. The morning sun spilled across the hardwood floor, catching the dew still clinging to the petals. Outside, the city buzzed with life, but inside was stillness, peace wrapped in soft light and quiet breaths. Ashford appeared in the doorway, barefoot, shirt unbuttoned halfway, hair still damp from the shower. He leaned against the frame, watching her work. You always look like you're composing a symphony when you do that. She glanced up with a crooked grin. It's a bouquet, not a cello concerto. Still, there's something about it. Like you're telling a story without saying a word. She set the bouquet on the bench beside her and stood, brushing her hands on her apron. You're in a poetic mood this morning. He crossed the room in 3 steps and wrapped his arms around her waist. I woke up next to my wife. Of course I'm poetic. She rolled her eyes, but her fingers curled into his shirt. You also woke up to me stealing the covers. I considered it a small tax for getting to hold you all night. He kissed her, soft and lingering, and the day didn't rush them. Later, they walked hand in hand down the cobbled street toward the cafe on the corner. The owner, an elderly woman with silver braids and a sharp tongue, waved them inside before they could reach the door. I saved your usual table, she said, already pouring coffee into mismatched ceramic mugs. Willa slid into the seat across from Ashford, brushing a curl behind her ear. I almost forgot what it felt like to move slow. You never really had the chance to before. She took a sip of coffee and tilted her head. And you think you did? I convinced myself I didn't need it. He leaned forward, voice low. But now I understand why people crave it, the stillness, the ease. You're not exactly built for ease. No. But I'm learning. They spent the rest of the breakfast in quiet, comfortable conversation, talking about nothing urgent. A new farmer's market opening across the bridge, the bakery next door to her shop experimenting with lavender scones, a book she'd started reading and abandoned twice. When they returned home, Ashford disappeared into the study for a call, and Willa wandered upstairs to the guest room that had recently become something more. The walls were now a soft green, the crib assembled in the corner, a mobile of tiny wildflowers spinning slowly above it in the breeze from the open window. She ran her fingers along the edge of the dresser, where a stuffed rabbit sat beside a folded blanket. Her chest tightened, not with uncertainty but with something else, something fierce and full. Ashford stepped into the doorway behind her, quiet as always when he was being careful. I didn't think I could want anything more than I already had, she said, not turning around. But now I do. I know, she faced him, eyes bright. Are you scared? Terrified, he admitted, but not of this, just of not getting it right. You will. She walked to him, resting a hand over his heart. We will. He took her hand and kissed her palm. She's going to have your fire. And your calm, she'll never stand a chance. That evening, they hosted a small dinner in the garden behind their home. Just a handful of friends, no formal place settings, no fanfare, just laughter, clinking glasses, and the smell of grilled peaches and rosemary drifting into the warm night. Edison bulbs hung between the trees, casting a golden glow over the table. Willa sat tucked beside Ashford, her hand resting on the curve of her stomach, the conversation around them fading into background hum. He glanced over and caught her watching him. "What?" She shook her head, smiling. "Just this." He turned his body toward her, folding one leg beneath him. "You ever think about how different this could have turned out, all the time? And I wouldn't change a single stumble that brought me here." Ashford leaned in and kissed her forehead, then her cheek, then the corner of her mouth. "I love you more now than I did when I first said it. I believe you. And I'll love you more tomorrow." She rested her head on his shoulder and they sat like that, the warmth of the evening settling around them like a blanket. Months passed. Their daughter, Isla, was born on a rain-soaked afternoon in October. Willa held her first, tears streaking her cheeks as she pressed her lips to the newborn's forehead. Ashford stood at her side, one hand gripping hers, the other gently brushing their daughter's tiny fingers. Later, when the nurses left and the room quieted, he sat beside them in the dim light, unable to look away. "She looks like you," he whispered. "She has your eyes. She's perfect." Willa looked down at the bundle in her arms. "She's ours." Back home, the nursery took on a rhythm of its own. Midnight feedings, soft lullabies, sleepy laughter echoing down the hall. Willa found herself humming while arranging flowers again, a constant smile tugging at her lips. Ashford took to reading aloud every night, even when Isla was too young to understand a word. One evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon, casting pink and amber through the windows, Willa stood in the doorway of the study, watching Ashford hold their daughter against his chest. Her tiny hand curled into his collar. She stepped in quietly and wrapped her arms around him from behind. "You're a natural," she murmured. "I've never been more sure of anything than this." Willa rested her chin on his shoulder. "What do you think she'll become?" He glanced down at their daughter. "Whatever she wants, she'll grow up knowing she can have the world. And love," Willa added. "Real, unwavering love." Ashford turned his head and kissed her temple. "She'll have that most of all." Together they stood in the quiet of their home, the air filled with the scent of flowers, soft baby breaths, and the promise of everything still to come. And none of it felt rushed. None of it felt borrowed. It was theirs wholly, deeply, and forever.